Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Thank you for being with us again this week. I have an amazing woman, one of those powerful women that I write about usually, but in a different field, Jen Drago from Peak to Profit. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
It's my pleasure and my honor. So, Jen, you were in corporate for quite a few years, and then you decided to go on your own. So let's start by this part. Like, what was your experience in corporate? Or, just tell me a bit about your story. Just like,
Sure.
all gonna.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I actually have a graduate degree in healthcare administration, and so I went into hospitals in the nonprofit world and spent about 30 years working in both healthcare and senior living in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And so it was a wonderful career, but the reason that I actually decided to leave is that I wanted to impact more organizations. So the work that I did in corporate was predominantly around strategy, and then I also was in charge of operations, and most of those 30 years were at an executive level. So I got to really see the power of when a business has a clear strategy with clear goals and really good leadership to kind of cascade those goals through the organization and make sure that they're front of mind every single day. I got to see the power of what that can do for an organization. And I also got to see times when, maybe we weren't as good as an organization or the leadership wasn't as strong. And so my dream was really to share that message with entrepreneurs, and particularly female entrepreneurs and small business owners. And that's why I started my consulting company almost 2 years ago, because I thought I can really have more of an impact with many businesses if I go out on my own. But I really loved, don't get me wrong, I loved the nonprofit world. I loved healthcare and senior living. I have a servant leader heart from working in nonprofits for so many years. But perhaps that's what led me to want to share that impact with many different owners and organizations.
It takes really thick skin to be a nonprofit. I was in it for 3 years. I can't imagine 30. So congratulations. And, congratulations too for all the amazing things you must have accomplished, because in nonprofit, it's always building something from nothing, basically, which is a whole different set of skills. But let's talk about strategy here a bit, because what you're talking about, healthcare organization. And for me, and probably for a lot of listeners, it makes a lot of sense to have a strategic vision and all of this, because it's big and there's a lot of employees. But then most entrepreneurs, when they do their own business, will think, well, I know why I'm doing my business. I know my mission, and some of us will scratch down like a mission, but quite often it stays there because we see it as, well, it's me and one employee, or it's just me, or we're just 10 employees. So I can speak directly to each one of them. So who needs these kind of things? Explain the importance of having that, whether you work alone or, in an organization that has 500 employees.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. This is exactly what I love to talk about. So first, let's talk about what a business strategy is, because I think that term gets thrown around and it's a little bit mystical. Really, having a business strategy just means that you have a vision for where you want to take your business. So like a 3 or 5 year horizon of what your business is going to look like, at the end of that time period. And then you have a pretty clear roadmap, at least for the coming year, of how you're moving in that direction. And that roadmap is goals. Basically, it's here's what I have to achieve. These are the most important things in my business to move in that direction toward that vision. That's all a strategy is. And so that's one of the things that I hope to do is demystify the business strategy so that everybody can start to say, oh, yes, I see why this is for me. Now, the reason it's important for any organization, but particularly for entrepreneurs, is if you go back to when you started your journey and you think about all the overwhelm that we all experienced because we had to figure out the tech, we had to create our website, we had to figure out, are we going to play in the social media world, and are we going to be on every single platform? And we had these membership ideas flying toward us. I mean, we were just like shiny object syndrome all day long. And at some point, I mean, some of that is you have to go through to get your business up and running. You have to go through all those details. But at the point that you're ready to get serious about growing your business and starting to build that revenue and that client base into your business, you have to get pretty focused. And so having that vision is the reminder, and having the goals as well, but is your reminder every single day of, oh, this is what I'm doing this year to build my business. What I love about creating the type of vision that I teach is called a vision narrative. So it's not a one sentence vision statement. It's 6 to 10 statements that when you read it, it paints a mental portrait of what your business is going to look like 3 years from now. And when you have a team member or team members, even if they're contractors, and you share that vision narrative with them, they know where you're headed to. And it makes them act differently. Even if you didn't give them different direction each day, they would know how to act in accordance with that vision. And honestly, your team members, your employees and contractors, they have great ideas. So why not engage them in how to get there and how to work smarter, not harder? So that's why I think it's important for every single business leader and or business owner to have a vision and those goals.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that as entrepreneurs, like I became one about 12 years ago. At first, quite often, we don't even know really what our purpose is. Like we will, like, let me clarify that. We will know what we're doing in business and everything, but to really have a vision of like what it's going to be in 5 years, quite often as an entrepreneur, like your goal is just to make enough money to survive and
Right.
replace whatever salary you had or create one. So how do you help people really define like what's going to be, because there's your purpose as a human being, and then there's the purpose of your business, which should be two different entity. So how do you help people really identify and determine that? Because it seems like so simple. And for me, it took me years to
Yeah.
actually really come with a clear purpose that I could say in a few sentences. Because before that, I could explain to you my business for an hour, but to
Right.
be very concise and just say like, this is it, and this is where I'm going. It was different because my focus was to put bread on the table.
Yes. No, I completely get it. Completely get it. I do think that there are people who are really good right out of the box as entrepreneurs at saying, here's what I do and here's my offer, right? So we need to have something that we sell to people, and we need to have a way that we can clearly message what that is. Even I'm not the best at that. I have a business coach and a copywriter who helped me refine that so that I could get better at that. So that's kind of the number one thing, right? And the number one thing I see early on in businesses is that folks want to make money, but they aren't really clear about how they can help people, so that, and they're not putting their offers out there so that people can actually buy them, right? So and I'm in an accountability group, and the women that I work with, there's probably at least one of them where I keep saying, okay, you know what your offer is. Now it's time to start going out and asking people if you can help them, right? I mean, at a certain point, we can't just only put it out on social media. We have to get really, most businesses, we have to have a list of potential prospects, and we have to communicate with them in a way that feels comfortable and not salesy, right? So for every person, it's a little bit different, but understanding, I guess, where your strengths are and where you can use a little help to get further faster, but absolutely have to know, first and foremost, what does the business do? How am I going to charge? How am I going to serve people? How do I communicate around that? The other thing that I see that can happen quite frequently is many entrepreneurs are creatives at heart. Sometimes their product is creative, whether they're an artist or a healer or a coach, and they're not quite sure how to set goals for their business. So they can articulate maybe that vision, but then the steps don't come easy, right? Because everybody's brain works differently. And so, again, if you find yourself in that situation where you know what you want your business to look like in the future, but you can't articulate the steps or even know what priority order to work on things, that might be where you might use the assistance of someone like me or a business coach that can help you chart that course from A to B. I'll give you a quick example. I was in a coaching certification program over this past year. I've been coaching my whole life in my executive career, but I wanted to learn some additional transformational skills to help people overcome blocks and limiting beliefs. But in that course, I ended up supporting and guiding a number of folks around strategy in their business, right? Because many of them were launching their businesses for the first time, but they just couldn't see how to do it. And that's great because they're great at what they do. So, again, I think my message here is know what you're good at and know when you need help. And really, if you're trying to get further faster, seek assistance and do so, judiciously, because I know we don't have a lot of money, but you really want to make sure you're picking the people who have walked the path and know exactly what they're doing.
Yes, and thank you for that. You said quite a few interesting things that I want to point out. One is, the golden object, the shiny object. It's true that as entrepreneurs, if your strategy is not clear and if your vision is not 100% clear, you will end up like you hear a TikTok and you're like, oh, maybe I should do this. You see an Instagram post, oh, maybe I should do this. And then you see the other person who has that many followers on Facebook, you're like, oh, that's definitely what I should do. So you end up, because any strategy takes time to achieve a result. So it's so difficult to be like a horse
Put the
with
blinders on. Yep.
And just like not pay attention to these shiny things, because we hear so often like things change so fast, you always have to be adapting and this and that. What do you say about that?
I absolutely, what you just said is so key, is once you have your vision and your goals, you have to put the blinders on and just work the plan. So for example, I have spent when I came out of my corporate role, I had almost no social media presence because, I was on LinkedIn for corporate stuff, but nothing else. And I didn't even use social media personally. So I had this huge learning curve. And I consumed a lot of webinars and master classes and bought courses and tried to learn everything I could about running an online business, some of it social media, some of it other things. And at a certain point, I realized, I'm just procrastinating here at the end of the day. Like, I'm not learning anything that, that new.
Drastic.
Each time it's just recycled, right? So I had to say, no more content. And that's really my mantra for this year, no more content. And also, I have my social media strategy down. I mean, it's pretty much one post a day. I pre-schedule it, and I follow the same formula week after week. And so that's good enough, right? So I'm not, jumping onto social media 9 times a day to make a new reel or something like that. So in those two instances as examples, I've defined a strategy for myself, and I'm, the blinders are on so I can work on what's most important in my business.
Yes, and it's key because we lose our focus so fast, I find, especially since, since COVID, we're all more online. So it seems like focus is not not as great as it was. And some people like me already had, a hard time with it. So yes, stick to the plan. It's like planting seeds. You're not going to see your plant the very next day. You need to take care of it for a while, and then eventually you start having results. And that's like the danger of wanting your results always like now. The other thing that you did talk about, like as entrepreneurs, I'm just having a blank here. Oh, so I'm gonna do this because what was I going to say? Wow.
Was it about the fears or limiting beliefs or anything like that?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna restart. Okay. So one of the other things that you said that you talked about is the fears and limiting beliefs and the procrastination. We will fix our desk, we will buy more supplies, we will go and do posts and all of that because it stops us from having to approach people to actually sell our business. Because there's one reality as an entrepreneur is there's always some selling to do. You have to sell your product, your business, yourself, or whatever, but it's always like selling something. So one limiting belief that I hear a lot in coaches and healers, and I could name so many different professions, is like, I can't sell anything if my life depended on it. And that's a big one that I find common. Do you find that as well? And how do you work through that?
Yeah, it is one of the most common things that I hear. And I would say the biggest piece of advice when someone fears sales is is a mindset shift to serving, right? And so you lead with service, you lead with value, you figure out how you can serve that person in that day and maybe give them a taste of what you can do for them through service. You don't want anything in return, you're truly serving. And when you lead with that perspective, whether it's your social media content that you're sharing, for free day in and out, it's different than selling, right? Because you're not expecting anything in return, but people are going to gravitate toward you and be drawn toward you because of the expertise, because of your generosity, and because of the value that you provide. So I believe that is a big thing as it relates to sales. Now, the other thing that I'll say is you mentioned fears and limiting beliefs, and I think these come up a lot in our business. And I can probably, if I thought about it and journaled about it, I would probably find at least one time a day that fear enters my brain. And it can be fear of being seen on social media. Oh gosh, that post was really vulnerable. Is that really what I want to say? It can be fear of rejection. So if I've offered my services to somebody and they don't want it, that can be painful. But it also can, you can learn over time that that's just, it's okay. That's about them, not about you, right? It can be imposter syndrome that comes up, lack of confidence, self-doubt. I mean, the list goes on and on.
There's one
And
big fear that I will ask you to add there and like talk about. It's the fear of success.
oh yes, that's a big
It's
one.
funny because that's all what we want. And some of us, like, I think in our subconscious, we're like, but what will happen if ever it does work? You know?
Right, right. Well, so here's the thing about fears. One thing to know is that 95% of our behaviors are driven through our unconscious, our subconscious, actually. But and so they're unconscious. So we're on autopilot. So even if we have a great vision, great goals, I have a great to-do list for today that aligns with my goals. My brain on autopilot and some of those voices in my head that I may or may not be even listening to, but are, in my subconscious, could derail me from the things that I want to do. And so that's the number one thing to know, is that you need to, there's a 3-step process for dealing with fears that I learned in my leadership coaching program. And the first one is to become aware. When you feel a fear, to actually become aware that you're hearing this voice in your head. In fact, you can give your inner critic or your inner child a name, like, okay, negative Nancy, I'm not going to deal with you today. But you don't want to actually resist it. So let me keep going with this. So so you hear this voice like, I'm not good enough, or gosh, I'm not sure that they're going to want to pay me for my services, or why should I even offer it? You just have these things that come up every day. You want to become aware of them and understand that that is not a part of you. That's part of your inner critic. And that's why the naming is important, because it helps you de-identify with the limiting beliefs. So you can say, okay, Nancy, I see, I hear you. And the next thing that you want to do is accept it. And here's the thought about every fear. If you drill it back to what it's trying to do for you when you feel that fear, it's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to keep you secure. Most often keep us in our comfort zone, right? It's usually we feel it when we're about to go outside of our comfort zone and do something that we're not used to. And that's an innocent desire, right? So that's where the acceptance comes in, and you can actually thank Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. Oh my gosh, I see that you're trying to keep me safe here. And then you plan your action from that point. So you're accepting of the fear and what it's trying to do for you. You plan your action, and hopefully you're taking aligned action anyway. So what's a comfortable way that I can show up on social media today? Honor the fear, or honor the safety part of what it's trying to offer to you, but still take action. So that's the important part about fear. So again, the steps: awareness, acceptance, and aligned action. And the most important part, well, they're all important, I think, but getting in action, right? You made a comment before that fear causes us to procrastinate. It does. It causes us to delay everything because we're waiting to be better, or waiting to overcome this fear, or waiting to gain the confidence. Once we get into action, and if you follow those steps over and over again, the fear actually dissipates over time.
I love those 3 steps. Thank you. And, make note of it. And I know, just like you said, it's going to become easier with time, but at first it seems very unnatural to stop yourself and think. And is your inner voice really, your inner critic really Nancy?
I did call her negative Nancy, yes. Which
Okay.
it hurts me because I have people in my life named Nancy that I love, and I'm like, I'm always worried about saying that word, but yeah, it's the negative part that just went with
Yeah.
Nancy.
So to all the Nancys out there, we have nothing against you.
No.
No, but that joke aside, the other thing that I think is really important to pinpoint is that you mentioned it a few times throughout everything you said, is have accountability and have someone to help you and someone to guide you. And that is what a coach does for you, and I know so many coaches who all have coaches. It's just having an external person to who you will, because when you're an entrepreneur, basically you have no boss. Your clients become your boss, but it's a massive clients. So it's not a one person that will give you feedback. So you can interpret all of that in very various ways. But to have one person, like, what does a coach do for you really?
Well, and I do. So thank you for asking that, because I actually have a couple of coaches, and I always have. I've had, so I have a business coach that's helping me get clearer, even clearer on my messaging and a new strategy that I'm trying in my business. And I have a writing coach because I'm writing a book right now. And I know nothing about writing a book. So I've had, I select coaches depending on where I am in my business and where I want to go, right? So I'm picking people who have the expertise and or have walked the path of where I want to go. What a coach does for me, and what I hope to do for others when I coach them, is, to help get really clear on their goals. And in my case, I'm a business strategist and a business coach. So I can help you get clear on your goals for your business. But then usually there's also some personal things that we want to work on. And one common thing that I hear a lot of is, I see people really trying to launch their businesses and grow their businesses, and they're not taking care of themselves. And
Mm,
you have to take care of yourself when you're a business owner or a business leader, because you are the business, right? You can't get sick. And so it's kind of a selfish motivation, but yeah, so we get clear on the goals, and then I can help hold people accountable to their goals and help them on a weekly or biweekly basis face the fears and the limiting beliefs, and talk through that process. And often it's not one thing that holds us back. It's we find that in different situations and different periods of our life, different obstacles come up for us. And so your coach is just helping to see you through those obstacles and helping you find your own path forward, so that you stay true to your goals.
thank you. And yes, I do believe that a coach is essential. And, whatever business you're in or whatever field you are in, and if we look at Olympic athletes, if you would see an Olympic athlete going to the Olympics alone, you would say, what is she or he thinking? Like, isn't that crazy? Like that, we could not comprehend that they're going there without a coach to accomplish something so big. But yet, we start businesses and we want to change our lives, and we quite often invest everything we have. And a lot of us do that without a coach. So just think about this parallel here. Everyone should have a coach. So I'm a big, believer in that. So Jen, what would you leave people with, about, there's so many different things we could talk about, but what would you leave them with today, after telling us where we can reach you, to better their life?
That's a great question. And so, I just by happenstance talked about something that I'm pretty passionate about, and that is taking really good care of yourself in the
Mhm.
midst of being a business owner. So if you want to be a strong a business leader, and you want to truly have that accountability and meet your goals, you really have to start with yourself first and foremost. You have to take, good care of your own nutrition, of getting physical exercise. It's all the things that we know. Every day, I don't know if you have a morning routine, but I do. I meditate, I journal, I exercise every single day. I try to eat well, and I do find that that pays dividends in the way that I show up in my business. But even more importantly to me is the way I show up to my family.
Mm.
So that I guess I can't ever say that enough. So that's probably the number one thing. The number two thing that I would like to leave your audience with is a gift that is available on my website. But we talked about having that vision and creating that vision narrative of where we want to take our business. And I actually have a workbook that's available on my website. And so people can get it and walk themselves through the process of creating that vision narrative for their business.
Wow.
And yeah, it's kind of a fun process. It's actually a very fun process. So my website, the best way to contact me is through my website, and it's peak2profit.com. And when you're there, you'll see right on the homepage, you can schedule a free strategy session with me. So if you want to talk through your business issues or get some free coaching for 30 minutes, that's the way to connect with me. And then there's a resource tab, which is where you'll find that vision workbook that you can download right from the website.
That is so generous of you, honestly, because it's amazing content, and to offer it like that. Thank you. Thank you. It's very much appreciated. And I know it's going to help some people. Jen Drago, thank you so much. Drago. Sorry,
Oh,
my French
you're good.
accent just like tripped in there. Uh, thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure. And, I'm sure that some people learned a lot. But it's really, taking care of yourself. I like that you did put the emphasis on that. And I liked what you said about you are your business. So you can't afford to be sick, and you can't afford to, take off or whatever. Although it's planned. If it's planned, you can, but if it's
Yeah.
not, it's just way more costly to not be in good health. That basically. So thank you for being with us this week, and thank you to everyone for being here. And Jen, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. I really enjoyed our time together, and it was really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.